Welcome to NWA Connie Corsos podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to another breed profile here on the Canis Codex. As always, I am your host, Dark Silver. Um, Once again, we find ourselves in South America by way of Brazil, dealing with the Fila Brasilero. Um, so let's jump right into it. So this dog is said to have come from crosses of Alans or Alanos of both Spanish and English descent. Bulldogs, obviously, because those were definitely dogs that were traveling with them because they were doing a lot of dog fighting in those days. Bloodhounds, other bull and mastiffs, or bull and besser, or bull biter type dogs played a role in in this breed's existence. Openly, the dog is used for farming, guardianship, the hunting of slaves, jaguar, and other wild animal that they may find while traversing the Amazon. It's a very versatile and stressful with people that are not a part of his family. Very similar build to the Presa Canario, um, with even similar movements that, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that. That the fanciers call it the camel walk, whereas the Presa Canario is said to be cat-footed. Um, but we'll get down to that. So, sharing something else with the Presa Canario is the word fila, much like Presa, refers to the grip or the catch or possibly even the fight. Didn't see too much about filas in combat against other dogs. Not to say that I'm sure that they were at some point, even if only a few times, but nothing substantial that I could find. Um, but like I said, the name Fila has similar meaning to presa, but unlike the word presa, it was never under attack for the nature of its name, thus causing some of the confusion that we have today with the Dogo Canario versus the Presa Canario, which, if you want to learn more about that, I have a 2.5 hour presentation uh, on just that. So, when the Europeans were out colonizing Brazil and other parts of what is now called South America, they began to develop um, dogs that they needed that were able to carry out needs based on the environment and its happenings. Um, so this first type of fila, back in the 16th, 17th century, was made possible by other transplanted crossbreeds, like I was saying, that were strong, able-bodied, and definitely able to perform a multitude of tasks: hunting, catching, various prey items, like I said, from wild pigs to jaguars, runaway slaves. So these traits were essential in being passed on into the present day fila, which is not necessary. We'll go into that. I don't want to jump ahead and come into that. So the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the Spanish all had a hand in the creation of the Fila Brasileiro, and there was definitely care taken in its manipulation with the creation of the different lines, such as the Saint Hubert type. And again, here we're talking about a pheno, so that specific line being bred a certain way, whether it be for size, color, or whatever it is. So this is something again that we also saw in the Presa Canario recreation, and the original dog being crossed in these same types of dogs, plus the native canines, and that's also what happened with the Fila. They also used some of the native dogs that were there already. Um, the Cal de Fila, I can never say this right, and I should be able to say it, but the Cal de Fila de Teresia was also, of course, used in the creation of the Fila Brasileiro. And if you know anything about that dog, it was kind of like the killer of Cordoba, or the old Cordoba fighting dog. You know, very ferocious, loved to fight. Um, you know, so That's why I would imagine that at some point in time, having that dog in the blood of that particular style of Fila, that it would have definitely engaged in some fights here and there. I mean, and then what better way to test your animals if they're going to be going up against boar and jaguar than with other dogs and people. Um, so like I said, that particular dog being used in dog fights in Portugal and throughout the Iberian Peninsula, and it would also have a lot to do with the creation of the Fila from San Miguel, um, and there is some info that I found, not much, didn't go into detail, but it said like the Cimarron that the Fila Brasilero did come from some uh, naturally occurring breeding, I guess, amongst dogs that were running around. Maybe the native dogs. It didn't really say. Maybe the native dogs with some of the um, dogs that were brought over by, the colonists. Excuse me. So moving on, in 1951, the first standard was created for the breed. Prior to this event, there were a good handful of great breeders working with their own lines or phenotypes. So the Fila definitely was able to become popular in its native home, much like the Cimarron. And it was like a lot of other breeds that had Spanish ancestry, or dealing in the Iberian Peninsula, the Canary Islands. Some of the same dogs would also go into influencing or re-influencing. In this case, the Fila Brasileiro, and those dogs would be the Great Dane, the current Neapolitan Mastiff, the English Mastiff, and even the Saint Bernard would go into some of the later lines. And supposedly that these crosses definitely didn't do the dog any justice and did more harm than good. So they were bad for business. But as things tend to happen like that, sometimes a standard was conformed from those crosses for a new type of Fila. Around 1978, the CAFIB came together and they wanted to preserve the original Fila type, prior to all the crossing. So, from their actions, an effort to regain the true original Fila was underway, and they began a reconstruction project using what pure Filas they could, and then they would create a new standard shortly after that that would go back and mimic a little bit of the original standard. And here again, if you listen to what I said, from there, their actions um, to regain the true original Fila type was underway, and they began a reconstruction. So, same thing with the Presa Canario. It was a reconstruction around the same time that the Presa Canario is being reconstructed. So, just to talk a little bit about the FCI standard. So, just in summary, it calls for a muzzle slightly shorter than the skull, and the length of the body from the sternum to the buttock is equal to the height of the withers plus 10%. Um, the body is covered in thick, long, elastic, loose skin, and the crop is set higher at the wither. So, there we go again. Something about that body style that these people like. Maybe it's the movement. I mean, that's why I enjoy it. But it could be for a number of things that they found, as far as the fighting abilities, the walking abilities, the running abilities, and things like that. I'm sure played a role in that, because you see it come along in a few breeds. So the feet are strong and well arched, but not touching. The toes, anyway, are not touching. They should point forward with dark nails and white nails only in accordance to color and coat. Movement: long, elastic, feline like strides, similar to the Presa Canario. They didn't say that, I added that in, which is being described as cat footed, and the Fila community would call this camel pace. And this describes a rolling or rocking motion of the thorax and hips in accordance with the tail when erect. When walking, it carries its head lower than the back line. Again, this is something that if you own a Presa Canario, you should be seeing them do, carrying their head lower than the back line. My dogs all do it, and if you have real presses, they should be doing it too. And here you go again, the Fila. It's something, and I do know that the Fila was definitely used in the recreation of the Pressa. Um, which Fila type, I don't know. So the FCI also says any solid color and brindle. So any solid color. So there we go with these innies again. And then when you bring up a dilute or something like that, they're like, oh no, 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 no. But I've seen black. I've never seen a blue Fila. But if you're dealing with black dogs, I'm sure they've had to occur here and there. But it says any solid color, brindle, some white markings permitted on the feet, and that's accordance with color. Black mass may or may not be present. White markings other than on the feet are a fault. Summary of the height. So minimum 23 and a half, maximum 29 and a half, and that's for both male and females, with the lower end and the higher end. Lower being the females, higher being the males, obviously. The weight summary for male and females is 80 to 100-pound minimum according to the FCI standard. I have seen standards where they do have a cap on this dog's weight. And like I said, that's just a quick summary. And just so you know, this dog has a good amount of things that can be considered faults, more so than you see in other breeds. So when you see that, that means that that's what I call a strict standard. To where any deviation from that standard, and you're not going to get the dog that you think that you're getting, or that you're supposed to get, or whatever it is that you call it. So anyway, that is the end of the Fila Brasilero talk. I'm going to put up some pictures, obviously, and there is a picture that I will put up, and I'll try to put it up while I'm talking about this now, that I have seen called a Cuban bloodhound, and I've also seen it called an Elan, and I've also seen it called a bulldog. But I'm going to put it up, and I'm going to talk. I'm going to have this running so you'll know which picture I'm talking about. But I have seen that picture associated with the Fila, and I've seen it associated with other dogs under different names. So whether that picture is verifiably connected to the Fila Brasilero, I don't know. And apparently nobody really does, but it's being used. So I'm putting it up with an explanation. So thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate all the new subscribers, all the likes, all the comments. So you can find me on Instagram. There's a link to Patreon. Under the Patreon video, I guess I can put it under the other videos. If you want to contribute, like I said, the only thing I'm going to use that money for is basically doing giveaways, buying collars and leashes and things like that, and then giving them away to you guys. So you're paying me to give back to you. So if you like my content, please share. And that's it. So peace out.
And that wraps up another episode of NWA Connie Corsos. Thank you for being a part of our Connie Corso community. Remember, you can stay connected with us beyond the podcast. Find us on all major media platforms by searching for NWA Connie Corsos. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Just hit that follow button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at nwaconniecorsos@gmail.com. And if you're a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address. For more resources, exclusive content, and links to all our social media profiles, visit our website at nwaconniecorsos.com. It's your go-to destination for everything dogs. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we can't wait to bring you more exciting episodes where we explore the fascinating world of dogs.